Welcome to the NewsHour. After 10 days of U.S. pressure on Ukraine following a disastrous Oval Office meeting, today the U.S. and Ukraine appear to be back in sync.
Following a meeting in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. has restarted military and intelligence aid to Ukraine, and the U.S. will present a joint U.S.-Ukraine proposal to Moscow for a ceasefire. Here's Nick Schifrin with more.
In Saudi Arabia today, a breakthrough.
The Ukrainian delegation today made something very clear, that they share President Trump's vision for peace.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, alongside Secretary of State Marco Rubio, met with their Ukrainian counterparts for 7.5 hours, and after said the U.S. and Ukraine were on the same page.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable.
In exchange, the U.S. agreed to lift a pause on military aid and intelligence cooperation to the Ukrainian military.
It's a big difference between the last visit you saw at the Oval Office and this. So that's a total ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it.
That tone.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
A far cry from, and perhaps a rehabilitation, after the February 28th Oval Office train wreck. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke tonight.
Ukraine is ready for peace. Russia must also show whether it's ready to end the war or continue it. The time has come for the whole truth.
Later this week, senior advisor Steve Witkoff will travel to Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to present the joint U.S.-Ukraine proposal.
The best goodwill gesture the Russians can provide is to say yes to the offer that the Ukrainians have made to stop the shooting, to stop the fighting, and get to the table. If they say no, then we'll unfortunately know what the impediment is to peace here.
And that was a crucial rhetorical shift today, acknowledging Ukraine's perspective and requests for long-term military assistance.
Real negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's acceptable to both sides, sustainable, and that ensures the stability and security of Ukraine for the long term.
As long as it's not undercut by the next step in Moscow, it's a good day which has historic significance.
John Herbst is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and the senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. So far, Russia has shown no public willingness to drop its maximalist goals in Ukraine. And earlier today, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov mocked Zelensky as a warmonger.
Mr. Zelensky publicly declares that he does not want a truce until the United States guarantees that, in the event that something happens, they will bomb Russia with nuclear weapons.
I don't think Putin wants to agree to the ceasefire. He wants to take more Ukrainian territory. He wants to establish effective control over Ukraine, which he cannot do if he accepts the ceasefire. We'll see if he crosses Trump now, and maybe more important, what President Trump does if Putin obviously and publicly refuses to make peace on the basis of this proposal.
Guaranteeing that peace will fall mostly on Europe. Today, French President Emmanuel Macron hosted military leaders who are developing plans to support Ukraine's military for the next 15 years, said French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu.
Since 2008, we saw the Russian strategy in action, with unfortunately ceasefires that haven't been respected. We will refuse any form of demilitarization of Ukraine.
But until there's an agreed ceasefire, the war rages. Overnight, Ukraine launched its largest drone attack into Russia in 3 years of war. Ukraine's been trying to bring the war to regular Russians' bedrooms. Literally, drones hit inside apartments in the Moscow suburbs. But Russia is making its own gains, raising the Russian tricolor over a village in the Russian region of Kursk that since the summer had been occupied by Ukraine. Earlier this week, Russian soldiers said they walked through a 9-mile-long natural gas pipeline in Kursk to surprise Ukrainian soldiers from the rear in now devastated villages. This war has taken a terrible toll on land and lives, and now there's a tentative step to negotiate its end. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.